Chapter 25. At 5:10 in the morning, the EGS tower's windows were almost all dark. From the deeply shadowed plaza in front of the building, we could see a sleepy, uniformed guard inside the lobby. There are dozens of businesses and law firms and stuff in this building, Jake warned. Most of them are probably just normal people. Fortunately, at this time of day, almost no one will be here. But the guard is probably just a normal guy. How do we deal with him without hurting him? Cassie asked. Suddenly, Tobias swooped down out of a dark sky. I can't see anything useful through the windows up here, he said. Too bad that glass dome is still in the future. But I can tell you one thing. Something up there is giving off some heat. I'm getting a beautiful updraft from the building itself. Let's do this already, I grumbled. I started morphing into the bear. Okay, but take it easy on any innocent bystanders, Jake said. Tobias, I know you're wearing out, but stay up and keep an eye out while we morph. No prob, Jake. He flapped his wings and slowly gained altitude. These doors will be locked, Cassie pointed out. Not for long, I said. Axe was already demorphing, coming out of his human body and resuming his andalite shape. Jake's eyes were glittering, his body was lengthening, and striped orange and black fur was spreading like a wave over his skin. Cassie was already on all fours. Rough gray fur grew thickly around her shoulders. Her mouth bulged out further and further to form a wolf's muzzle. Hey, a guy's coming up behind you, Tobias called down. I think he's drunk. He's carrying a bottle. If it were daytime, I could read the label. He's definitely staggering. Keep morphing, Jake said quickly. Cassie, if you can get rid of him? Cassie trotted off, already fully morphed, and a second later we heard followed by, whoa, no way, and then the sound of a crashing bottle and running feet. Cassie returned just as we finished our morphs. He decided to go in a different direction, Cassie reported. Okay, so let's go in, I said. I was fully the grizzly now and feeling invulnerable. Actually, how about if Marco tries it first? Jake suggested. While the rest of us lurked in the shadows, Marco, now an extremely large, powerful gorilla, Knuckle walked to the glass door. He stood up on his hind legs and tapped with one massive finger on the glass. The guard jerked in his seat. He stood up and moved cautiously closer, and then he drew his gun. Hey, get out of here, the guard said. Hi, Marco said in thought speak. I just came from a masquerade party, and I was looking for Visser 3. The guard's eyes went wide. Andalite, he hissed. Oh, so you are a controller. Good, that makes this so much simpler. With that, Marco punched straight through the thick glass of the door. Crash. His gorilla fist connected squarely with the guard's chin. The guard crumpled, still holding his gun. Move, 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 Jake yelled. I barreled into the rest of the glass door. I was careful, but not too careful. I wasn't very worried about being hurt. Shattered glass flew everywhere. Cassie, Axe, and Jake leaped over the glass shards. Jake raced for the elevator. There may be an alarm. We have to move fast, Jake said. We'll never fit in one elevator, Marco said. Head for the freight elevator. That'll hold us, Jake said. Go for the top floor. Cassie and Axe kept an eye on all activity on the ground while they waited for the elevator to come back down. Jake, Marco, and I had the most firepower, so we went in first. We squeezed our combined bulk into one freight car elevator. Not an easy thing to do, but we managed it. Can you press the buttons? I sure can't, Jake said. He held up one of his huge paws to show me. It wasn't easy. Bear paws aren't exactly subtle tools, but after carefully lining up my first claw, I hit the top button. The doors closed and we rose swiftly upward. There was a safety inspection certificate mounted on one wall. I leaned very close to make out the letters and read it aloud. Says here the maximum load is 20 people. How many bears, tigers, and gorillas? The ride seemed to be taking forever. I watched the counter tick off the floors. 21, 22, 23. So, seen any good movies lately? Jake asked. I want to go see that new Keanu Reeves movie, I said. He's supposed to be cute, right? Duh, I said. I wonder if you'd ever want to go out with a girl like me. You know, lots of guys wouldn't want to date a grizzly bear. Suddenly, I realized there was music playing in the elevator. The stupid elevator music. Get ready, Jake said. Been ready. Top floor. Ladies' shoes, children's apparel, everyone out, Marco announced in his best elevator operator's voice. The elevator stopped. The door opened. Just as 3 humans and 2 Hork-Bajir were racing toward the elevator. Roar, Jake roared in a voice that could crack concrete. Roar, I echoed in my own muddier bear voice. I charged like an enraged bull. I went straight for the nearest Hork-Bajir. That meant running through the closest human. I felt a slight thump as his body was knocked aside. I slammed into the Hork-Bajir. The force of my charge just picked him up and carried him along until I hammered him into the far wall. It didn't kill him, but he wasn't going anywhere. Jake took down the other Hork-Bajir with a lightning swipe of his claws. The remaining humans bolted. I'm cut, Jake said. Is it bad? It isn't good, Jake said, but I'll be okay for a while. Just then, the elevator door opened and Axe and Cassie piled out. About time, I said. We've taken care of the welcoming committee. Sorry, Axe pushed the button on the wrong floor, Cassie said. She glanced at the 2 Hork-Bajir. You know they have more of those up there guarding the Kandrona and... Jake, you're bleeding, Cassie cried. I'm fine. The human controllers ran down that hallway, Jake said. Let's go. We haven't won this battle yet. I took off at a loping run. The others were right behind me. My claws gouged the carpeted floor with every step. I couldn't see well, but I could smell the adrenaline of the frightened human controllers. I knew where they had gone. I could smell them. I could sense them. They had challenged me, and I was going to show them who was boss. Watch out, Rachel, Cassie called. There's a door straight ahead of you. Nah, there's no door, I said, and I plowed all 800 pounds into a steel door that popped open like the lid of a jack-in-the-box. Inside, 8 Hork-Bajir warriors stood ready. 8 walking razor blades. 8 of them. 5 of us. No way we could win. A sensible person would have seen the odds and run away, but I charged straight at them. Later, everyone thought I was being brave. But you know what the truth was? The truth was, with my weak bear eyesight, all I could see was a blur. I thought they were humans. I wasn't brave. I was just blind. Chapter 26. Rachel! Cassie yelled out a warning. Too late to retreat, Jake said. Go! I figured out the 8 blurry figures were Hork-Bajir when I was about 3 feet away from slamming into the first one. By then it was too late to stop. Kill the Gwefnar and the lights, the Hork-Bajir cried in a weird mix of languages that they use. Kill Ferglin and the lights and kill all. Suddenly I realized I was cut. A searing pain radiated from my shoulder. I swung my paw and hit the Hork-Bajir in the head. He fell, but as he fell, he slashed with his Tyrannosaurus feet and ripped a second cut in me. Ah! From that point on, it was a nightmare of terrible images that seemed to float in and out of my hazy vision. I saw Cassie with her bone-breaking jaws sunk into the throat of a Hork-Bajir. I saw Axe, his tail like a deadly bullwhip, lashing, cutting, lashing again, till one of the Hork-Bajir stood screaming, holding his own severed arm. I saw Jake and a Hork-Bajir locked in a deadly embrace as they rolled and slashed at each other with superhuman speed. I saw Marco fighting with one arm as he held his own sliced stomach together with the other hand. And everywhere, snarling, growling, raging, roaring noise. Look out, Rachel, behind you! Die, Gerfrach! Die! Roar! Help! He's on me! Ah! I couldn't tell who was winning. I couldn't tell who was hurt. It all just became one long cry, one long scream of rage. Hork-Bajir and Animorph, alien and animal. We were flesh and blood creatures thrown into a meat grinder. 13 deadly animals locked into a combat to the death. I felt the bear weakening as he was cut again and again by Hork-Bajir blades. I was losing blood. The human part of me knew that. I could feel my strength ebbing. I charged again and hit Hork-Bajir in the stomach. I carried him along with my momentum as he slashed wildly at me. Crash! I hit something. Glass. It had shattered. A window. I had shoved the Hork-Bajir through the window. Ah! I heard the Hork-Bajir's cry, dying away as it fell. A sudden flash of movement, as something came zooming through the shattered window. Seer! Tobias screamed as he spread his talons forward and struck the closest Hork-Bajir, raking his eyes. The battle had turned. The Hork-Bajir had had enough. Maybe he was hearing one of their fellows fall 60 stories. Maybe it was Tobias's arrival, strengthening our side. But whatever it was, the remaining Hork-Bajir ran. 3 of them ran. The rest of them would not be running anywhere. Marco grabbed the crumpled door and slammed it back in place. Then, with what must have been the last of his strength, he shoved the desk in place to block the door. I'm hurt bad, Marco said. I gotta morph out, man. Do it, Jake said. Everyone demorph. I'm okay, I said weakly. Rachel, Tobias said, your left arm. I stared blankly at my left paw. It wasn't there. It was a stump. Demorphing, I said. I focused on my human body. My weak but healthy human body. Morphing is done from DNA, fortunately. DNA is not affected by injuries, so injuries do not follow you from one morph to another. Exhaustion does. As my human body emerged from the vast bulk of the grizzly, I felt so weary, I was afraid I might faint. Through human eyes, I saw a scene of carnage. The Hork-Bajir lay sprawled around the room. Most seemed to be breathing. None were conscious. All were bleeding from claw and teeth wounds. Unfortunately for the Hork-Bajir, they cannot simply morph out of their injured bodies. Everyone okay? Jake asked, sounding as weary as I felt. Yeah, but that was way too close, Cassie said. We were in a large office. I could see that now with my human eyes. Desks lay splintered. The carpet was ripped into ribbons. The walls were gouged. Floor-to-ceiling windows formed one wall. They were shattered. I remembered the Hork-Bajir falling, and shuddered. There was a door in one wall. Through there? Marco suggested. Let's try it, I said. I staggered toward the door. It was not locked. A bare room, tile floor, white-painted walls. The wall of windows was blocked by heavy curtains. The room was empty but for a large, massively built platform in the very center. It was a steel pedestal, maybe 3 feet high, 8 feet long. And atop that pedestal was a machine the size of a small car. It was shaped like a cylinder, tapered to dull points on both ends. It gleamed brightly, like new chrome, as if it had been just polished, and it made a slight, low humming noise. As I approached, I felt my hair stand on end from the static electricity. It was warm in the room, very warm. It smelled like lightning. The Kandrona, Axe said. The Kandrona, I echoed. For a full minute, we all just stood there, gaping at it. Rachel, Jake said at last, we need you to morph again. Can you do it? I nodded slowly. Elephant? Elephant. I don't know how else we're going to do it. We don't have any tools or anything. I morphed the elephant. Tobias flew outside to make sure there were no pedestrians below on the dark sidewalk. It took every last ounce of power that elephant had, but the Kandrona did move. It did, slowly, in jerks and starts, slide across the floor. And when at last I shoved it through the windows, it did fall the 60 stories to smash onto the concrete below. Chapter 27. We did it, I whispered as I returned to my normal body. We destroyed the Kandrona. We have to get out of here, Jake said. The Urks will know. They'll be all over this place. So, what does this mean? Marco asked. We did it. But what does it mean? Have we changed the future? Everything changes the future. I groaned. Somehow I knew we'd hear from that guy again. A replacement Kandrona will be here in 3 of your weeks. It was already on its way. Are you telling us this was all a waste? Marco demanded. Axe said, No, Marco. It was not a waste. 3 weeks with only the Kandrona aboard the mothership? In 3 weeks' time, they will suffer greatly. They will fall behind on their schedule. Many Yeerks will perish. 3 weeks is not a waste. Don't you mean 3 of our weeks, Axe? Marco teased. Is it enough? Jake demanded loudly. Is it enough? How we changed the future? There was no answer, just silence. I don't think he knows, I said. He showed us possible futures. But you know what? I don't believe the Ellimist really knows the future any more than we do. What makes you so sure? I laughed. Because whenever it is that the Ellimist exists, and whatever he's up to, and whatever game he's playing, and no matter how mighty he is, he has butterflies too. Then, an amazing thing. Laughter that welled up from inside us and echoed through us, and made us all smile as if we were fresh and full of energy. As I said, you are a primitive race, and yes, you are capable of learning. I smiled. Come on, guys. Do you have the energy for one more morph? I feel like flying. At first, we saw no evidence that the Yeerks were suffering. I don't know how they did it, but the Yeerks managed to maintain. It wasn't until later that we learned we had done them terrible damage. But that is another story. 2 days later, I took the bus over to my dad's apartment. He was packing up his suitcase to leave. Hi, Rachel, he said when he opened his door. I wasn't sure you were coming over. I shrugged. You're too disorganized to be able to pack all this by yourself. He smiled a sad smile. Thanks. Yeah, no big thing. I would have come and picked you up, he said. Sweetheart. My dad said, You know you can always change your mind. You can always come live with me. I know, Dad. He smiled sadly. You know, I'll miss seeing you as much, even though I'll be here every chance I get. I know that too, Dad, I said. I gave him a little kiss on his cheek. He patted my hair, and I cried. I closed up his suitcase and zipped it. You gonna be okay without me here to take care of you? He asked. I could take care of myself, I said, wiping away the tears. We took the elevator down to a taxi that was waiting. Come with me to the airport. I'll send you home in a cab. I shook my head. No, I have stuff to do. He smiled. I understand. You probably have something very important to do with your friends. It was a joke. Absolutely, I said. We have to save the world. My dad laughed. If anyone can do it, honey, it would be you. Then the taxi drove off. I looked up in the sky. A lone hawk circled high overhead. You coming, Rachel? Tobias called down to me in thought-speak. I nodded my head so he could see. Yes, I was coming.